Hey everyone, how's it going? So if you've looked at my channel, you'll see that I have tons of videos on how to get hidden ability Pokemon. Now I plan to make more of these, especially once Pokebank comes out. And funny enough, between Sun and Moon, X and Y, and Oris, you can pretty much get every hidden ability Pokemon. Except for, of course, starters and fossil Pokemon and legendaries. Those you'd have to get through an event. But another way, especially to get fossils, was through the Dream World. And in fact, there are actually 10 completely regular Pokemon whom, because the only way to get those hidden abilities is through the Dream World, you can no longer catch them if you don't have them already. So you could ask a friend or maybe go on the GTS or Wonder Trade and you might be lucky enough to get one of these. But if not, you're going to have a really hard time finding these 10 Pokemon. And let's get started. At number 10, we have Basculin with Mold Breaker. So a lot of you probably didn't even know that Basculin has Mold Breaker as a hidden ability, and I wouldn't blame you if you didn't. Basculin is rarely seen competitively, and when I do see it used, and I actually run a Basculin myself, you almost always see it with adaptability. Adaptability, if you don't know, changes your stab increase from 1.5 times to 2 times. So you put a Basculin, you put some, waterfall on it, you give it a choice band, and that does a lot of damage, even to a Pokemon that resists it. However, Mold Breaker is, well, I wouldn't say is useful. It's actually a very complicated effect. Simply what it does, and this is according to Bulbapedia, like always, it ignores the effective abilities that could potentially affect the damage or effects of a move that the user executes. Now, that sounds simple until you see there's like 5 paragraphs of information of what is affected, how it's affected, etc. So I don't want to go into all that, but suffice to say, it's not that useful. I mean, it'd be kind of cool, kind of a counter to Mimikyu, because the disguise is actually ignored when someone with Mold Breaker attacks it. But there are far better Pokemon to use, and I'm personally going to stick with my adaptability Basculin, even if somewhere, somehow, Basculin gets released with its hidden ability. At number 9, we have our first representative from Sinnoh, HIPPOWAON and HIPPOPOTAS, with their hidden ability, Sandforce. Now, again, probably you didn't know this Pokemon had Sandforce, and I have seen a couple times in Showdown people use this, but almost always it's run with Sandstream, and it's very useful with Sandstream. Sandforce, by the way, if a Sandstorm is on the field, you get a 1.3 times boost to all your ground, rock, and steel moves. So it's not a useless ability, but Sandstream is just such a great ability. I mean, why would you not want a HIPPOWAON with Sandstream? I was actually really surprised by number 8, which is SENTRET and Furret with Frisk. Now, I hate to say, Frisk is probably the most useful ability on this pair. I mean, Keen Eye, I guess, to avoid accuracy drops could be used, and you don't see these Pokemon run very often at all. Frisk lets you know what item your opponent has, and that can be pretty useful, but I was just shocked that you can't get these guys in Oris, there's no Friend Safari, and they're not available in Hordes anywhere in Generation 6. It just surprised me. I thought somewhere along the line you could get a Sentret. You also can't SOS chain them, they're not in Sun and Moon, so yeah, this Pokemon's existed for a really long time, and it's sort of odd that you can't get one with its hidden ability. Alright, well at number 7, we're back with Unova Pokemon, and we have KARRABLAST and Escavalier with their hidden abilities. So, KARRABLAST actually gets No Guard, and I had no idea it had this ability, mostly because Escavalier doesn't keep it. Now, for those of you who don't know, No Guard ignores accuracy both ways when a Pokemon with it is on the field. So, basically, KARRABLAST can use whatever move it wants, other than a one-hit KO move, and it'll hit every single time. Of course, the reverse is true, so it's a bit of a double-edged sword, but it's a really cool ability. You see a lot of Machamp run it, and Mega Pidgeot, that's kind of what made Pidgeot really useful. Unfortunately, Escavalier gets Overcoat, which really isn't a good ability for it. Overcoat shields it from weather damage, but Escavalier's already Steel-type, so it would only get damaged by hail. So I guess it now can counter Alolan Ninetales a bit better. I mean, it being Steel-type pretty much already did that. It also shields it from Powder and Spore moves, but alright, cool. I'd rather take Swarm or probably Shell Armor. Swarm powers up bug moves when you're at low health, and Shell Armor ignores crits. That seems like the most useful ability, but heck, maybe one day I'll run a no-guard KARRABLAST. That seems like a ton of fun. At number 6, we have one of the more interesting Pokemon from Sinnoh on the list, which is Burmy, Wormadam, and Mothim. So Burmy is fascinating in that it evolves into like 4 different Pokemon. Burmy, if male, will always become Mothim, but if female, it can become 3 different Wormadam, all of which share the same base stat total of 424, albeit it gets divided up a little differently based on the forms, and they also have some different moves because of their different typing. Depending on where you evolve Burmy, it can either become a Bug Ground, Bug Steel, or Bug Grass. So that's kind of unique. Now, Burmy starts off with its standard ability Shed Skin, and Wormadam gets Anticipation, which indicates when the opponent has a super effective move, but all of them get the same hidden ability, Overcoat. And truth be told, I'd rather have Anticipation. It's nice to know that your Bug Ground Pokemon should watch out for this fire move you didn't see coming on a Manectric or Zebstrika or something like that. On the other hand, Mothim has a really cool hidden ability. Actually, my favorite ability in the entire game. I didn't say it was the most useful, but it's just one I think is really neat. And that's Tinted Lens. Tinted Lens doubles the damage done by not very effective moves. Unfortunately, Mothim usually gets Swarm, which, as I've said, just powers up bug moves when it's at low health. Not as cool. I'd much rather get Tinted Lens because so many things resist bug. Doing a little more damage, it feels great. Moving on to number 4, we have the other bug duo from Generation 5, which are SHELMET and Accelgor. One thing that always mixed me up when I first got into the Unova games was how SHELMET and KARRABLAST evolve into what looks like the wrong Pokemon. See, SHELMET looks a lot like Escavalier and KARRABLAST like Accelgor, and I get why it works that way, because you trade the KARRABLAST for the SHELMET and then they both evolve, so they kind of look like the other one, but it's still kind of strange. Anyway, to keep on that kind of strange thing, SHELMET's hidden ability is Overcoat, just like Escavalier's, and they both get Shell Armor. The only difference is that Escavalier gets Swarm and SHELMET gets Hydration. Of those, I guess I'd run Shell Armor. Accelgor, on the other hand, it has the funniest hidden ability, and when I saw this, I kind of laughed. I didn't actually know this. So if you had to pick one thing on Accelgor that's pretty darn good, you'd probably say it's speed, and you wouldn't be wrong. If you don't count Legendaries or Megas, it's the 3rd fastest Pokemon in the game, and if you do, it's tied for 9th. So I don't think it needs the ability Unburden. Unburden works that when you consume an item, your Pokemon's speed doubles. Now, on something like Slurpuff, that's pretty good. It makes it from a slow Pokemon to a pretty fast Pokemon. But on Accelgor, it takes it from a fast Pokemon to a Pokemon that can outspeed like anything with a Scarf. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of a cool ability, and it is kind of useful. I mean, if you had a Focus Sash on your Accelgor, you actually could take out certain things with Choice Scarf. That's actually a strategy you could use. I just think that's really funny. So at number 3, we actually have our last Unovan Pokemon, which are PATRAT and WATCHOG with their hidden ability Analytic. Now, Analytic is extremely useful on these Pokemon, and it's a useful ability in general most of the time, except on like Starmie. But what Analytic does is when your Pokemon acts last in a turn, it gets a 1.3 times buff on its attacks. That's not too bad. I mean, you could equip like a Life Orb and it's like you have 2 Life Orbs. A lot of Pokemon can take advantage of it, like Behem and Porygon Z and Magnezone. Patrat's no exception to that, and it's not a great Pokemon competitively, but having Analytic on it really helps it out. At number 2, we have the Pokemon that inspired this entire list, mostly because I like this Pokemon so much, and I can't get it with its hidden ability, and it makes me really sad. This is one of my favorite Pokemon, and as soon as I say its name, it's going to surprise you, and that's exactly why it's one of my favorites. That Pokemon is Qwilfish. And you might be thinking, who cares about Qwilfish? I've heard that all the time. I care about Qwilfish. Qwilfish is awesome. So is Stunfisk, by the way. Had to throw that out there. They're my favorite fish. But like, it's a pufferfish, and competitively, it's actually really decent. I mean, I'm not going to say it's great, but it has spikes, toxic spikes, destiny bond, thunder wave, 95 base attack, 85 base speed. Pretty good. Plus it gets intimidate. It lowers the foe's attack when it comes into battle. Altogether, pretty useful Pokemon in my opinion. And at number 1, we have 2 of the last remaining Pokemon, if not the last Pokemon, I'm not completely sure, whose hidden abilities are completely unobtainable legitimately. And those are Passimian and Oranguru. For whatever reason, every Pokemon that has a hidden ability can SOS chain except for these 2. Oh, they call for help. They call for help actually very frequently. They just don't call for more of themselves. And it's a very bizarre choice if you think about it. All the Pokemon that can't call for help, none of them have hidden abilities. Minior, Wimpod, Kamala. Also, Defiant is a pretty useful ability. In case you don't know, when one of your stats are lowered, you get +2 in attack. I could use that on Passimian. It's not the fastest Pokemon anyway, so, you step on Sticky Web, you get +2 in attack right off the bat. Pretty good. As for Oranguru, none of its abilities are super great. I mean, Telepathy is good in double battles to avoid, like, Earthquake and Surf. You don't take damage from your allies' attacks. Symbiosis, I don't quite understand exactly how it works. It's a doubles-only ability, and the only other Pokemon that has it, it's also a hidden ability, is Florge, or Florgus, or Florges. I don't know how to pronounce that one. So that about wraps up this list. Did you know that it was really hard to get Pokemon with these hidden abilities? If you have one of these, perhaps you guys in the comment section could work out trades. I know people have done that on my videos, so that could be a cool thing. I will admit, by the way, that the ordering was somewhat arbitrary. It's not like other lists where I really thought about where I wanted, like what position I wanted them. They just were 10 Pokemon who are hard to get. I guess I ranked them by degree of surprise, but that's pretty subjective. I'll admit that immediately. But yeah, that's about it. I hope you enjoyed. If you enjoy these sort of top 10 videos, please leave a like, and I will definitely make more of them. Take care.